The open seat on the Supreme Court may be filled soon, with President Trump nominating Neil Gorsuch to fill the 9th and final seat. Here's 8 things I bet you didn't know about America's highest court. The most influential justice is probably John Marshall, who was the 4th Chief Justice and presided over the court from 1801 to 1835. The noteworthy case Marbury v. Madison was the very first case that invalidated an act of Congress as unconstitutional, setting up the idea of judicial review, which has become incredibly important in many issues, including slavery and civil rights. Recent justices, the currently serving Ruth Bader Ginsburg and the now deceased Antonin Scalia, whose seat could be filled by Neil Gorsuch, were as ideologically different as possible, with Ginsburg often being seen as the most liberal justice and Scalia being seen as the most conservative. Nevertheless, the two were incredibly close friends and regularly attended the opera together. Friendship across party lines is possible. The court is in session. White quill pins are placed at the counsel tables. These quills are often taken as souvenirs, as most people don't tend to use quill pins anymore. Only one president has ever served a full term without having the opportunity to appoint a single Supreme Court justice. Jimmy Carter, our 39th president, serving from 1977 to 1981. There's been a lot of discussion in the past year over Merrick Garland, President Obama's pick to fill Scalia's seat. Republicans refused to fill the seat, saying that the president should choose, whereas Democrats stated the people had their choice when they reelected President Obama in 2012. The vacancy for Scalia's seat will likely be open for more than a full year, which is a long time for a seat to be vacant. But it's actually nowhere near the longest. The longest vacancy traces back to the 1840s, when Henry Baldwin's seat was filled by Robert C. Greer, a whopping 841 days later. The longest recent vacancy is 391 days in the 1970s. During Supreme Court cases, the justices can interrupt at any point to ask the attorneys questions. Current Justice Clarence Thomas is famous for his silence on the bench, however. Last February, Clarence Thomas broke 10 years of judicial silence by asking nearly a dozen questions in the case of Voisin versus the United States, a case dealing with the Second Amendment rights. In an attempt to fill the court with justices who would be more sympathetic to his policies, Franklin Roosevelt pushed for legislation that would expand the court from 9 justices, where it had been from 1869, all the way up to a potential 15 justices. Of course, it would be Roosevelt as president who would have nominated the new justices to sit on the court. While the Constitution lists requirements for almost every elected job, no such requirements exist for the Supreme Court. In fact, six justices have been foreign-born, and the youngest justice was a mere 32 years old. In addition, one doesn't even have to have finished law school to sit on the bench, although in fairness, the last person to have not finished law school to sit on the bench goes back to the 1940s, and prior to that time, most people who studied law simply did so by reading the laws and working under a more accomplished mentor, rather than specifically attending a law school. That was 8 things we bet you didn't know about the Supreme Court. Thanks for watching.